Good morning. This is Sherry Evans with HRM Plus, and I am going to be sharing a webinar with you today on managing employee information. And we're going to be going through the tabs, the various tabs where you record employee data. We have already done webinars on the credits and the experience and the salary compensation data in the work areas, but today we're going to be going over all that other type of information that you can record and track. What I found in talking with clients is that many of you have additional Excel files where you're maintaining some type of data. And when you do that, if the employee's name changes, you have to change it. If their position or their location changes, then frequently you have to change it over there. So for that reason, we want to go through these, and one of the objectives is not only to show you all of this, but to also show you how you can use this tool without having to maintain extra Excel files to use the data, to use this system, one database system, rather than a database and basically an Excel file, which is also a database in the end. So we're going to be covering each of those areas in the system, and as I do, I'll be referring to the documentation that I sent out to you yesterday. If any of you did not receive that, you can just email to support@hrmplus.net, and we will certainly get that to you. And following today's webinar, we will be placing that documentation in your management resources area. So when you're in your employee records, and or if some of you are on board that are because you work with professional development or the job application system where you can go to management employee information, you too will be able to use some of these tools there. So either way, you're going to see the documentation for managing your employee helpful information here in your resources, which will be this document that I did email out. Okay, first things first that I want to share with you is this. The system runs by tables in the background a lot. So in the documentation, what I have done is given you a chart to show you from the personal tab. So for example, let me come in here, management search. We've got people joining, so welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. And I'm going to go, when I get to management search, I always operate slower inside the webinar. I'm not sure why. And you search for an employee and you edit their record, as you know. Well, I'm waiting for this. Here we go. Okay. You have tabs of data. And again, if you're in the job system or you're in the professional development system and you look at an employee record, either shadowing them or through the employee information tool, you will also see tabs. You just don't see as many tabs. So let me go ahead here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use my famous Mary Abbott here that we use for our webinars. Oh, that was really interesting. Okay. I have our tech people working on a release, and I am getting an error, which is highly unusual. So let me just double check here. Cindy Bixler, could I use your system real quick to show something?
You bet. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I had our tech calling in on the phone. I don't know if you heard that, but I've been testing this all morning with no trouble. So I don't know what's happening on our release site, but wouldn't you know what happened when you try to do this? So you'll get to see how we do support. So whenever we go to a site, then we shadow one of you. So thank you, Cindy from Yakima. So if you'll be mindful of the fact that we're going to look at an employee record here, you go into management search, and then you can pick your employee type and then search, or you can select someone by name, whatever works for you. So I'll just do one of their types here because it doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring up a record by clicking the pencil to edit, and I will test here. Deb is on the line with me. Deb, will you test our release site and let me know if it comes back up okay? I know they're doing an update today. Okay, so we have this main information on an employee's record. And what I was showing you is that as you go through each of the tabs, and again, if you only have Jobs or ProDev, you don't see all of these tabs, but you do have some of them. So on the Personal tab, these are the tables that are associated. So when you go to System Manager, Lookup Tables, if you're dealing with the Personal screen, it has several tables. It has the position. Primary position is the field. That's the position table. We have the location, Alt Location 2, Alt Location 3. That's the district and location table. We've got the reasons, and here's where you can find those tables. Assignment table. So what I tried to do, or we tried to do, is make a grid for you that shows you on each screen which table is being used. Because, for example, let's take the evaluation. You get to the evaluation tab and you want to start storing some data there. Well, in that case, then you need to come over to the System Manager, look up tables, and find the table, and then set up your information. And, of course, if you need any help with that, you just let us know. So, for example, evaluations. If maybe I'm keeping all my evaluations in Excel, and I go, why don't I just keep it over here? Because you can get the same reports and everything you need. Then you just come in here and add your new evaluation items, which I'm going to cover in depth today. But that's why it's important to understand as you look at data in a system and you're looking at fields that you're going to enter data, where is that coming from? So that when you click into a drop-down box, such as location or assignment or unit, whatever it is, you then understand where that's being driven from. Every time you see a drop-down box, that is a table. Okay, so I'm going to cover this personal information screen now by actually using the document here that you have. So bring that up. Get this back over here. Okay. So we go to search and we find somebody and we open up this personal screen. And I am going to zoom this up for you so it's a little larger. Okay, here we go. So when you come into the personal screen, you're going to see these various fields. Sorry, it's getting here. Okay, so here we go. So you've got name, the name fields, email fields, location fields, their base FTE, their base hours. Now you also have some ID fields. But I made some notes in here for you about important things on this screen. Names. When you change a name, we suggest a couple of things. One, record the AKA name. So even if you should have all of your employee records by their legal name that matches their Social Security card, by the way, that's you're supposed to do in HR and payroll. Payroll is supposed to match the Social Security card. So if they have an AKA first name, you can use it here, and obviously with their last name. Now, another thing that you can do when you change names is that you can track that, and we'll cover that when we get into the events table. But you could track, like create an event called name change, or if you want to track name changes by year, you can create an event called, for example, name change 2018-19 or 2019-20, and you can easily get a report out of the system showing who changed their name. And in that report, you would see their previous AKA last name and then their new name and whatever other related data you want in your report. Now, with email addresses, this is the one place to change an email address. You can either shadow the person or you change it from here, but you never change it from user accounts. It is common that when a person is hired and you're using our job system that they have their personal email in their email primary, and that you copy that and put it in their secondary and then insert their work email into the primary. If you do that, then we just suggest that you notify the employee that you've changed the email because they log into our systems with the email address on file, that primary email. It doesn't affect the password whatsoever, so you just want to let your new people know if you've changed their email address or for whatever other reason you change it, that they should now log into our systems with the new email address that you have changed it to, but their password is unchanged. And then for locations, you have a primary location as well as two alternate locations. The alternate locations are good for you to record, just for information purposes, but in the job system, it allows that employee to view open jobs from not only their primary location, but their assigned alternate location. For example, we have people that are an assistant principal at 2 different schools. So then you can assign both schools to them, one of them being the primary, and then in the job system, they can see open jobs at both sites. Now, there are several ID fields. We call one Exchange ID, the EMPSSN, serial number, pay ID, vendor number, 5 different fields that you can use to track identification numbers. For those of you in Washington, many of you use that to track the WSIPSI Skyward number, alpha name key number, or your 5-digit ID number that you have in Skyward. Some of you are tracking the number that you have in the substitute system in there for your subs. So you can use these fields as you would like to record any other kind of ID number. If you haven't done that yet and you would like to store that, like en masse, you can send us a file from another system that has the employee name and their email address, because we can match based on that, and then whatever the ID number is from that other system, along with instructions from you as to which field you want it to go into. Do you want it to go into serial number, pay, vendor number, whatever you want to use that for? So again, if you find that, oh, that'd be a good idea if we stored that other ID number, but you don't want to go through your 600 employees and do that individually, you can send an email to our support team, and we'll start working with you and give you directions on how to do that. Now, the inactive field, which is down here at the bottom, I'll just bring that over here again. With changing screens, it changes all my sizes. Back here again. Shows a checkbox, a date, and a reason. And that reason drop-down box, that's controlled by a table, so it's completely up to you to be able to manage and add those things. And the document I gave you shows you where to get to that table. But when they go inactive, you can go ahead and check it and put their inactive date and their reason. At the bottom, you have these assignments for their roles and their employee type. So they can be a multiple employee type, like this person's a teacher and a coach, or they can just be a teacher, whatever it happens to be. Now, whatever these are, how you have your system set up in terms of your categories. We're looking at Yakima right now. Okay. So the last thing at the bottom is the role assignment. I think as most of you know, our systems work based on roles. So the roles that you have give you permissions to the system. With this employee record system, everybody should have subscriber and registered user, like that. If you're a supervisor evaluator, you should have supervisor checked. If you work in HR, you're going to have HR administrator and system manager, or if you're a co-op district, instead of HR administrator, you'll have HR district administrator. And those are the functions that I wanted to review with you on this personal tab. So I will stop and see if you have any questions before we continue on. And while you do that, I'll take one more whack at seeing if I can open my record up and finding out what happened, if it's going to load or not. So questions? I am not. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. I'm going to move on to I'm just going to follow the Word document I sent out to you, the PDF. So the contact screen is used to record address and phone number. Pretty simple. Most of you are using that. But what is important in the employee record system is that everybody must have a mail address and a home phone. So if somebody comes over, for example, from the job system and they have a street address, you just want to click Add a New Address, and then you would pick Home here. But what's nice about it is that you can copy this right here. You can just go, I'm using Control-C to copy, and, you can even copy the city and the state, whatever you want. Copy and paste that in and save it. And that is because reports have to look at a specific set of data, and so it looks for mail address. And the same with phone. They might come over with a cell phone, but what you want to do is create a home phone. And if all they gave you was a cell phone, you can just create a new phone number using the cell number as the home phone. So that's important, again, because of reports. Any questions or notes about the contact screen? Okay, we're going to go on to profile. So for the employee record side of the house, this is primarily used to support your affirmative action reporting. It's a pretty simple screen. You've got your gender, which we control in a master table. You enter the birth date here, so you can just use the calendar and enter a birth date. You've got marital status, ethnic group, which is your standard groups, and then you've got ethnic types. So ethnic types can be used, and again, that's a table where somebody does have in the system they've recorded that they are 2 or more races. Then you can set up the ethnic type table to record which races those are. So we are hearing a little bit of background noise. If you're not muted, if you could mute, we'd sure appreciate it. Thank you. And then you just check off these other boxes as they are applicable. There is a utility in the system that will update this I am 40 years of age or older, because that's what the EEOC calls aged. Don't you love that? And so the aged is the note that the EEO makes. Now, if you're not maintaining this data and you're maintaining it in some other system, okay. If you're maintaining it in an Excel file, I'd tell you be sure to use this system instead. And again, we can come in here and make sure that we have the data, work with you to transfer data from another system, and then work with you to extract your data. We have worked with several districts that are just filing their EEO5 report, which we have to do every other year in the even year, so that's this year. And we just extracted that data out for them because they maintained it here, and voila, they had their data. And it was really easy breezy for them to get that data from the system. Saved them lots of time. Okay, so it's a pretty easy one. I'm going to go on to traits and events. This is a big ticket item for helping you maintain a lot of items that you may need to maintain because of bargaining unit requirements, legal requirements, whatever that might be. So we have traits that you can maintain, which is a drop-down box. Of course, that would be the traits table. So you can see this district is tracking people who maybe are qualified for American Sign Language because they want to be able to find them really easy. They've met a bilingual Spanish requirement. They're a coach. Something with bus driving. They've met the paraeducator highly qualified requirement, seniority stuff. So lots of substitute traits. We see that very frequently. The unit they're in, we see that as a trait. So there's no end or limit at all to the number of traits that you can have for a person or that you can set up in the table. So the trait is basically a single item that just describes some characteristic that you want to track for that person. I see people use the grandfathered BA 135. I see first aid CPR required. Again, seniority groups. We're definitely doing seniority reports out of here. If you're maintaining those anywhere else, a couple of setup things here, and voila, we produce your report, and you've got that with a click anytime. See national board, people who have the national board certificate. For some reason, you have to find these people. I have seen people use a trait where the person had an unsatisfactory eval for the year. So you can do that, unsat evaluation if you want to. So it's really all about you thinking of what are the data sets that we're tracking anywhere that we have to track, and for sure are we tracking it in something else? Would it be better to track it here? And then it can be set up. And events is the same thing, except that the event gives you an event up to 2 dates and a little kind of a short comment box that you can choose to record. And with the events, we certainly see things like start date, and then we'll see previous start date. Sometimes we see start date, and then we see previous start date 1, previous start date 2, previous start date 3, or we'll see start date temporary position, lots of different things because people come and go, and they have recurring start dates. You can track those. Same thing with separation dates. We'll see separation date or maybe retirement date, or people will just put separation and then put the reason is resignation or retirement here, because it's so easy to get reports out of either traits or events. So again, just be thinking of all the kind of things, orientation, just different kind of things that you want to track. Here Yakima uses a letter of intent date because that's tied to their seniority, and then they can just bebop over and get the seniority information. So I'm going to stop now that I covered both profile and traits and events and see if anybody has any questions. I have unmuted all of you so you can ask questions.
Sherry, I have a question. On your handout, you have National Board under Trait. Is that a better place to put it than under Certificate?
Well, the reason that people put it both places, so it would be under Certificates, is because you can record the number and the detail to it. But if you just want to find out real quick who has National Board Certification, you can go into Reports and say anybody with a trait of this, and boom, you've got it. So sometimes you need that because you're doing your pay for your National Board stipends, and you're going, oh, where am I going to find out? Do I have to go through all the certificates to find that? No. If you just, when you record a National Board Certificate in Certificates, come over here and add the trait, then when you go to Reports, and I'll show you, then you can just say, give me everybody that has the trait of that or an event of that, and voila, it'll come up.
Cool. Okay.
So it's kind of a nice shortcut way to find people that have certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You betcha. Any other questions there? Okay. I'm going to mute you up, and then we're going to go on to the next one, which is the Comments tab, and I'm just looking at the documentation for you as we go over there. And so comments aren't used a lot, but we find that they're quite helpful when you are wanting to add a comment to track something. The most common things that I see, and I have it in the documentation over here, so I'm going to come over here, is that you would track things like, oh, they transferred from one position to another. I'm going to come back up. Here you go. Or they maybe were on leave of absence, or something that was like a major event, and you're wanting to track that. Or maybe you hired them, but you're wanting to track information about something you're still needing. You can just keep comments all you want in here. So you can just go add new comment and then add it. Now, when you go to add a comment, you can just type in the comment here. Or if you click into this drop-down box, that's actually a list of items from the comments table. So the nice thing about clicking into the drop-down box and selecting one is that when you select that item, it just populates the comment with whatever you've selected. So for example, in my little message here, I selected leave of absence, which populated into the screen below leave of absence effective, because that's how I have it set up in the comment table. And then I can just put my cursor in there after the word effective and put in my dates or any other notes. And then I save it, and I have that comment record. Now, when I do that and I add additional text to what appears here, it doesn't change the default comment. So the next time I use leave of absence, check, select it from the drop-down box, it's still going to come up with just leave of absence effective, and then I can type the data for the next person. So it's a handy little way to track all those little notes that you kind of want to make about an employee record. And you're going, where should I put that sticky note? Here it is, right here. It's a good place to do that. So that's the comments. And I'm going to go ahead and go down to the User tab. So people use the User tab for a variety of things again, and these really are just all different ways that you can present and maintain information on employees, and it's up to you to do them in a trait or an event or a comment or a user info tab. And again, you just click New User. So I'm going to come over here and come on in here, and voila. Come back here and show you from my document what a completed screen might look like. So here we're tracking dental benefits. Maybe you want to keep track of the date it started because in your HR office you track benefits. Or maybe their emergency contact information. Are you keeping that somewhere else? Guess what? Throw it in here. With the user info, the table actually creates this item. And then when you add it in the system, you can add up to 4 pieces of information. I know that we have a district that uses this to track coaching assignments because they don't want to track it in the work areas, which is fine. Then they just track it here. And they just go coaching assignment, and in information 1, they put in the year, like 2016, 17, 2000, whatever it is. And information 2, they put in the position, assistant wrestling coach, tennis head coach, whatever it is, because they're not tracking in HR the pay for coaches for whatever reason. A lot of you do, and you do that in the work area with the compensation data. But if you're not and you just want to track something like that, this is a great place to track an item and up to 4 different pieces of information about it. So that is the user and the comments item. So I'm going to stop there because we're going to get into evaluation, and that's going to be kind of a bigger item, bigger ticket item. So I'm going to unmute you so you can ask questions. Any questions about the user or the eval area, or excuse me, the user or the comment tabs? Okay, hopefully we have you thinking about, oh, how could we use that stuff? And then you can just email us and we can, talk with you and figure out the best way for you to do that in your system so you can be as efficient as possible. Okay, we're going to go on to the Eval tab, and it's sad that I don't have that in my system working because I have a whole demo set up. So we're going to go over here and use my Word document, which is exactly what's in my demo site anyway. So the evaluation screen, or eval, we just shortened that up, maintains evaluation records. And it will maintain the base evaluation information, but it also, with a click of the plus to the side of this, can maintain the score, ratings, whatever you want to call that, for specific criteria. And I'll be showing you that in a moment. Now, for the storage of data in this area, it's really important that evaluation types table be properly established. So in general, in a broad sweep, the evaluation types for classified and administrative really are usually quite simple. Classified annual evaluation, administrator annual, classified probation, administrator probation. Whereas the certificated, because of your bargaining unit requirements and state requirements, are significantly more complicated. Where you, okay, well, if you're a new hire, you're on this for so many years, and then you can go to this for so many years, and then you can go to this for 1 year, and you got to go back, and there's all kinds of things. So what I've done is I've, in this Word document, given you a sample of how you might set up your evaluation table. So the first thing to do would be to get this table set up. So here I have 3 different types for administrator groups. So when you set up your table, you identify the group, administrators, and then the type of the evaluation, however you want to label that. This could be administrator leave of absence or leave of absence administrator. So that can be recorded to reflect that. Why isn't there a record for that person for that year? There's like a skip. It goes from 2014-15 to 2006. Why is it missing 2015-16? You can record that they're on leave of absence, and that's why they have no evaluation completed. And so then otherwise it may be a new or an annual or probation, however you want to do that. And the same with the classified then. You can set up a coach evaluation, and you can set up different ones. You can have head coach evaluation, assistant coach, whatever you'd like. And then what I find in looking at the bargaining agreements, especially because everybody I have today is from Washington, is that you have 2 different types of evaluations. So I'm going to come here to the teachers first. Now, the teachers are the most complex. So again, we've done one that says no evaluation required, so you could use that for some reason, the leave of absence, intensive assistance, which is one of the options they can get into. But generally speaking, what happens is you get a new hire and they're on the comprehensive plan or evaluation type for 4 years. That's required. Comprehensive new year, 1, 2, 3, 4. Why did I do this? Why didn't I just say comprehensive evaluation? Here's why. In our system, we have a tool that annually will find everybody that's comprehensive new year 4 and move them to focused year 1. And then move the comprehensive year 3 to 4, 2 to 3, 1 to 2, without you having to go do that and enter a record for everybody for every year. No, you can mass go in and find everybody that's on one evaluation type and move them to the other. So there's a cycle or a sequence you have to set up to make sure that you don't move you move the 3s to 4 before you move the 2s to 3. But we have a tool that does that, and we will be doing a webinar on that in the springtime when it's time for you to do all of that stuff, and we can do one individually with you if you choose to set these up. So that's why we also want to track first year comprehensive or their second or their third or the fourth, because we can provide reports that you can export out to your supervisors that will show them all of their staff, exactly which evaluation cycle they're in, which type, and what the due date is. Now, along with that, then we go from comprehensive 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they go to focused year 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they cycle out to the comprehensive for 1 year, where they're only on it for 1 year. So we called it this. And then you have comprehensive because they're leave replacement or they're retire, rehire, or because the employee and the supervisor have just agreed to do it, and you have the probation. Now, what we also have for the certificated is observations. Many districts like to track these because, by law, if you're a P1 or P2, provisional year 1 or 2 cert, you are required to have 2 observations a year. And if you're a P3, you're required to have 3. So tracking those here gives you an easy way to say who's done that and who has not, because we can pull the export information reports that tell you exactly who has these that are done or not done. So it's a really quick and fast way to get the data of who's on what type of evaluation, when it's due, who the supervisor is, and is it complete or not, which we'll be looking at with the records. And then with your cert specialists, your ESA type people, typically they are still on what we call the old short form, long form, but again, they tend to be on long form as a new hire for year 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they go to short form for 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they cycle to the long form for 1 year, and then they go back to the short form. So hopefully, I'm just going to stop here and see if you have questions about how we set up this model table in case you have an interest in doing that. So I'll go ahead and do the unmute all, and I'm open for questions on setting up the evaluation table. No questions. Well, you're either totally blown away or no. Here you go. So I'm going to go ahead and mute back, and we're going to come in here. And I just made a note in this document. It's just really important to identify the specific levels and ensure you create an evaluation type, for the year that the employee cycles into another specific level for 1 year only. But again, we can help you set all of those up. Now, once you have established the type of evaluation in a table, you click a little plus next to that item, and you can add the criteria. So for the comprehensive evaluations, we have added the 8 state criteria in our little model. You don't have to do this, but what's cool about it is that when you go to record an evaluation, you would be able to record, comes in, you want to record, and you can either record just I'll show it to you. You can record a score for each of these, or you have a non-proficient box that you can just check. They were non-proficient in this item. So it's very minimal data entry, which produces a report for you that instantly shows you anybody that either had an overall unsatisfactory or a non-proficient in any of the specific criteria. And you can add criteria. We have people like a food service evaluation that have very specific criteria for food service. So you can have a criteria item that just says food service, or you could have one that has, maybe you have 5 or 6 criteria for your food service evaluation, in which case you could put those there, and then you can easily get a report. Now, what I was working with a food service supervisor on, it was pretty cool, is that she knew she had some people that were unsatisfactory and, of course, or weak in certain areas that she wanted to track. So she has a little scoring system she uses that she enters. So we created a report for her, and it's, boom, right there. And so she's able to get that report. And what it showed her that she was surprised at is she didn't realize that of the kind of weak or unsatisfactory or not proficient areas, she had 2 of her, I think she had 6 evaluative criteria areas, 2 of the 6 that seemed to be more prominent. So that said to her, and that they were with people that were newer, she said, you know what, I'm going to take that on because that's a training need. So that's a great human resource function, to be able to do something like that and come back and say, oh, well, we've got this many food service people weak in this area and this area. I am going to do some specific training, and I'm going to incorporate in my training for new hires more of a focus on those areas so they don't become an unsatisfactory or not proficient. And I just love that story. I think it's a good one. So then once you've set up your table, you can go in and add your evaluation record. So you just click the Add Evaluation button, and it'll open up the screen. And I'm going to zoom this up some more for you. So you may see existing records here as an example of where, for our little employee, we have a comprehensive year 1, 2, 3. It shows the evaluator, the date due, the date complete. Again, you can record a score and unsat and comments if you wish to. When you either add or you edit, it'll pop open such as this. And you would put in the school year, select your evaluation type from the drop-down box, select your evaluator. Now, that drop-down box will contain a list of the people who have the role of supervisor. And what I want to make a note about is if you have a supervisor leave your district, you always go into user accounts and take away their permissions, like in the job application system, so they can't go view open jobs at that location anymore. But on the employee record side of the house, you would leave the role of supervisor even though they left, so that their name will continue to appear in their evaluation records. If you take it away, it'll appear as a number instead of the name. And then you can add the due date, date complete, score, unsat, and comments. So that is a basic recording of an evaluation record. But once it is recorded, and here's a little table that tells you exactly what to put into those fields, and you save it, you can click the little plus next to it, and up will pop the criteria that you have specified for that evaluation type in that table. Boom, just with a click of a plus. So if you want to, you can put scores into each of these boxes. You could just put a score into the ones that are weak, or you can use this NP for not proficient and just check it and say this person's not proficient in this area or that area. And again, we would work with you because your criteria is all different to pull a report so that you could quickly see for this evaluation type where are my non-proficient marks or my overall unsatisfactory mark that would be recorded here. Now, I know recently I've talked to several of you that have been to some of our webinars where we've talked about the various items, including this evaluation, and we're working with several districts right now to bring evaluation data over from an Excel file that they've been maintaining, and we'd be more than happy to do that with you. Now, there's also an annual update or mass update, and there's a separate set of instructions for that, but I'll just show it to you now so you can see that. So I'm going to go here. And I'm going to go under Utilities, Management Utilities. And we'll be doing a webinar on this, and as we set you up, help you know how to do this for your system because you have different evaluation types. So once you get to Utilities, which is where you basically mass calculate or mass do things, you can come down here to the Evaluation tab. And on the Evaluation tab, you can mass add. So let's just say that you've never tracked evaluations for some reason, and I want to do it for my classified employees. I could go classified, and I can pick the classified annual evaluation here, and I could put in the year 2018, and I could even put in the due date, whatever you want to put in, 2019 or whatever that is. You can pick an evaluator, but in that case you might want to pick a location, or you can just record it later. But once I do that, I can select the employees, or I can just select like 5 people at a time. And when I select those employees, it's going to bring that group up to me, and I post this. And it will post that evaluation record into all of these employees' records in the Evaluation tab, ready for me to record the complete date and the ratings if I'm choosing to do that when it comes in. So this mass tool is really nice. You can also do a search. So you can come in here to evaluations once you have them all set up, and you can say, just tell me anybody that does not have an evaluation for 2018. They don't have an evaluation record. I think I set everybody up, but I'm not sure, and you can just select them. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this system, and checking your data or mass adding it or rolling. I talked about rolling from one type to the next for the next year. All of that is done here. You can also do an update. So, for example, if you get all the evaluations in from a particular evaluator, then you can pick that evaluator and you can just update the completed date, period, en masse for all of his if that's what you chose to do. You can also do a new evaluator. So Robert Bidwell left, and Timothy Crees is taking his place. It will just go into 2018 evaluation records wherever the supervisor was Robert Bidwell and make it be Timothy Crees. So we'll do another webinar on that, but just to give you a feeling of how that does work with the evaluation. So doing annual updates, mass updates, all those kind of things, pretty easy to do in that system. So I'm going to unmute now and see if you have questions or comments or thoughts or whatever about the evaluation tool. Nothing at all. Well, that's good. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and go back to our management search, and we're going to go on to some tabs that are pretty easy, which is the certificates and license tab. So we're going to go into certificates. And again, I have the Word document here. You can see where you can track certificate number, code, issue, expiration, endorsement, and then 3 fields over here. So when you edit or add a record, you will, I'll just bring one up here, you'll put in the certificate number, the code, which comes from the certificate codes table. So if you don't see one you want or you want it done differently, you can do that for some reason. Whatever it is, they have an asterisk in front of teacher, so they come up first. It's just alphabetically how they come up. And then you have the issue date, the expiration date, the endorsement code coming from the endorsement table. Again, you can modify that anytime you want to. The verified checkbox is used when you and HR have verified, either like through EDS or you have a copy of the certificate, whatever it is, that you can validate that this is a correct certificate information, and then you can save it. Now, back in the day, we used to maintain all the old archive certificates, so that's why there's an archive box here still, and some districts do. But for the most part, because of the state system with EDS now, we only maintain current certification here because it's so easy to go to EDS and get the other information. So this is a nice area to maintain data because, again, you can export out information that will show you expiration dates or by location for a high school administrator who's doing master scheduling. To be able to get a report that shows me the type of certificate and the type of endorsement the employee has is huge for me being able to do anything with my master scheduling and moving staff around to make sure that they have the endorsement for the assignment, which I know they make mistakes on and we have to check. And then just to let you know, that little prime checkbox that's there, that is for very specific to Idaho. But if you for some reason want to make a note that one of these is their prime certificate, feel free to do that. And then you have a copy feature, which is kind of nice because once they get one certificate and it has all the same information and the only thing different is the endorsement, you just copy it. So I'm going to copy one here. And so are you sure you want to copy? Yes. And then it brings up the one that was copied here, and I edit this. And all I have to do is change the endorsement to a different type. Now I'm going to I made it nurse on purpose, so it's something really obvious. And then you have it. It's just that fast. So once you create one, it's easy to just go copy and change the endorsement. And then because I am thankfully over in Yakima's site right now, I'll delete that. And then the license basically works in a very similar way in that you record the license number. So you can just come in and add a license number, whatever it is. Pick your license from the drop-down box, which you track. So if this was a bus driver, I might want to do that. Issue, expiration date, again, a verification, and an archive checkbox, and that's it. So I'm going to come over here to the Word document and bring that back over on the screen for you. Make sure I didn't miss anything. So certificates maintains that certification data. You can use the add certificate or copy it or trash can to delete one. Here's a little grid that tells you what to put in the various fields. And then same thing for license. Here's a grid when it opens with a record, a sample record, and then you can edit or click the trash can and then enter your license information, and then again, information that tells you exactly what to put into each field. And then we're going to go over to education. So I'm going to move over there in a minute, but I'm going to stay on this Word document to show you when it opens, it's going to bring over the education. Now, If you're using the job application system, it's going to bring over what came from the applicant, and the verified will not be checked. And the other thing that you'll notice is instead of seeing BA, you'll see bachelor's. Instead of seeing AA, you'll see associate. Instead of seeing HSD for high school diploma, you'll see high school diploma or master's. That's an indicator that you haven't verified it, because on the employee record side, when you save it and verify it, it changes it to the abbreviation. So that's a really good way to eye-catch things that you know you haven't verified, both by that and by the verification. Good way to do that. So when you go to add or edit education, you're going to select your degree type, AA, high school diploma, whatever it is, the date, put in the state and the institution. So if your institution is not there, you need to go to the institution table and get it added. Most in these days are there. And then optionally, you can record a major and a minor. Those are in the major-minor table. The GPA typically comes over from the job application and otherwise not recorded by HR, but can be. Now, this verified box is very important for those using employee records, because for teachers, where the salary and salary schedule placement is based on their education, their education level, their degree, their credits and experience, it will only count degrees that are verified. So if you have recorded on a person a bachelor's that's verified, you record the master's but you didn't verify it, it will not place them in the MA column. The other thing I want to note is that when you record education, because of the state rules, we can only count educational records that occur before October 1 annually. So we just had a couple calls about this. You get a new hire, and they just graduated on November 1, and you hired them as a teacher, just boom. So you go in and you put in their BA, Central Washington, date November 1, and you save it, but it won't calculate a placement. That's because of the cutoffs in the system being October 1. So the little trick is to temporarily change their education date to something before October 1, go over to credits or experience and calculate them to get a placement. Then you can come back here and change the date to what it really is, the November 1 date. So I wanted to make that little note about the education date and why it's so important, the October 1 cutoff with the certificated staff. So, okay, and then this table, grid, to enter into the education record, so you have that here. And then, as I noted, for clients using the job system, when it comes over, you'll need to verify it, so it cannot be used. But the cool thing about checking the verified checkbox, once you do that, then the user cannot alter that data in the job application system. And that's true for certificates, license, and education. Once you click verified, because you've done your work, you don't want the employee going to the job system and redoing that, and they can't. So the verified blocks them from doing that. And believe it or not, that is our webinar today. I do want to finish by showing you that, I'll try it over here on my demo site, that once you maintain this data, it's fairly easy to go into management search. And for example, I may want to find people that have a particular trait. So you can just leave it on any, or if you know it's a teacher group, you can pick that. But once you come down into here and click the little plus, you can come down here and you can pick a trait or an event, or you can missing the trait or event. Sorry, I'm going to ignore that. So here you've got, do I have anybody that's missing a trait or missing an event, or you can pick the trait and event. So I can say who's a coach or whatever trait you want, and just go search, and I got them. Just like that, they're there. Boom. So very easy to find people by traits or events. So I can clear my results and take that off of there, and I can say, okay, well, who's missing? Maybe I need to know everybody who's missing a particular event or trait. Then you can do that as well. But it is a handy little tool for quickly finding traits and events. If you want to find everybody that's approved as a sub, you could do that. Got some old HQ stuff in there. But that national board. So who has national board? Boom, get it. You can get it by the event, or if you tracked it as a trait, you can get it that way, either way. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to get that kind of data off of the employee search screen or the employee report screen, either way. And in the employee reports, we have several options for you for reports, and many of you have custom reports as well. But again, with the report screen, you pick whatever report it was, and a lot of you just use the name listing for these, and then you'll go down and say, oh, well, what do I want? And so you just pick the report, whatever you want for that. So with that, we're going to close out today's webinar, but I'm going to unmute and thank everybody for being on board and see if you have any questions at all as we close out, and we will send you a link with a recording of this webinar. Thank you, Yakima, for allowing us to use your system to demo, and we appreciate it. Any last questions, comments? If not, you can just exit the system.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today.